My wife refuses to feed our daughter and doesn't see a problem with it. I met my now wife when my daughter was 10, and she had a son who was 7. 5 months into our relationship, I introduced her to my ex and my daughter. My ex and wife were cordial and my daughter warmed up to her quickly. My daughter grew up sort of a picky eater. She won't eat things like oatmeal, tomatoes, garlic mushrooms, anything salty and so on. She loves spicy food, sweets and all that. You could not trick her into eating anything she didn't like. When she was 13, I put 1 garlic clove in the melted butter I was using to make her grilled cheese but she could taste it. She ignored me for a whole week and didn't eat anything I cooked for her. I never tried anything like that again. I work a 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. shift, but yesterday I got off around 9. When I got home, my wife had already prepared dinner and left my plate in the oven. I heated my food and stood at the island and chatted with my wife, who was with our son in the living room. As I was eating, I realized that my wife had cooked garlic stir-fried rice, barbecue chicken, and a vegetable salad consisting of corn, tomatoes, mushrooms and spinach. I stopped chatting with my wife and just observed my plate for a good 5 minutes. My wife asked what was wrong and if I disliked the food. I asked her what my daughter had eaten because everything she cooked were all foods my daughter disliked. She was quiet for a few moments before finally saying that my daughter had not eaten since lunch. Needless to say, I was upset and I asked her why she didn't switch up the meal to accommodate my daughter's palate. She got really defensive and started saying my daughter was being dramatic and it was just food so she could still eat if she was hungry. We argued and I reminded her that it wasn't that simple for a picky eater like my daughter. After a while of going back and forth I decided to end the conversation by ignoring my wife. I felt that my daughter's wishes were disregarded and I took my daughter out to eat. I also brought her some sweets and we bonded and talked a lot. I discovered my wife has been purposely cooking food my daughter doesn't like. My daughter has never been one to complain so she has been using money from her paycheck and she wasn't going to eat this particular night because she had no intention of pulling money out of her savings. We got home around midnight and my wife was upset that I took my daughter out instead of convincing her to eat her cooking. Me and my wife are going to have a long chat when I'm off work. My wife refuses to feed our daughter and doesn't see a problem with it. After my wife got mad that I took our daughter out for food I decided to confront her about the issue. My wife was hesitant as she didn't want to have this talk at all but finally she said,
I hate cooking for your daughter because it's too much effort to go out of my way to constantly accommodate her. It's extremely annoying always making sure the food is cooked to a certain texture and seasoned to your daughter's liking. I stopped cooking food the way your daughter likes it because my son doesn't like it that way. Your daughter just needs to grow as it is only food and it wouldn't kill her. Her being picky is just too draining.
Asked why she didn't have a sit down with our kids to make some sort of compromise and she said her son's needs came before my daughter's. She also revealed that she had straight up stopped buying more than half of my daughter's personalized grocery list because it was a waste of money and asked our son what snacks that he wanted. I was dumbfounded and asked her if she was just going to let my daughter go hungry, to which she responded by saying all she has to do is eat the food she cooked. I asked her what was draining about putting 1 or 2 pieces of plain chicken aside. She said that I wouldn't get it because I didn't cook for my daughter like she did. She suggested that I should convince my daughter to eat the food she doesn't like because it would make everyone's life easier. I then asked her if she would think the same thing if it was our son and she didn't respond, which was answer enough. If she's willing to let my daughter go hungry, what else would she be willing to do to neglect my daughter? Update 2, my wife refuses to feed our daughter and doesn't see a problem with it. I continued to be dumbfounded that my wife admitted to not buying my daughter's grocery list. This limits the already small list of food my daughter can cook and eat herself. She believes that it's a waste of money and should be used on snacks her son prefers and extra food. We try every now and then to expand her palate but she literally will gag and vomit the food. I won't let her pay for her groceries because a child shouldn't have to worry about making sure they can eat no matter what age they are, that's the parent's job. My daughter has a choice to stay with me or her biological mother. She's choosing to stay with me and my wife will be the one leaving once the divorce is finalized. I will be having a sit down with both my kids separately and one with everyone together. I do teach my daughter how to manage her money. My daughter is a junior so she is usually busy with sports and the student council at her school. She shouldn't have to worry about having a meal to eat when she gets home. My daughter isn't upset with my wife and is sympathizing with her because she knows it is difficult to accommodate someone with her taste palette and is insisting that I give my wife another chance. Even after my wife openly admitted to putting her own son's needs before my daughter's, but still I don't play favorites with her son and my daughter, and if our roles were reversed I bend over backwards to accommodate him. I didn't notice before because my wife always told me that she made a separate meal for my daughter, which I believed, and my daughter is a huge people pleaser so she didn't say anything, probably because she was scared to drive a bridge between me and my wife. My wife's neglect towards our daughter is serious so I'm going to put my daughter in therapy because I know she won't just come out and say what other issues her and my wife have been having. I feel extremely guilty as a parent for not seeing my daughter was being neglected sooner and I hope my relationship with her can be fixed. Update 3, my wife refuses to feed our daughter and doesn't see a problem with it. The issue runs far deeper than my wife purposely neglecting to buy my daughter's grocery list after insisting to do the grocery and food organizing on her own. She purposely neglected my daughter and disrespected her. I no longer trust her because this could just be stage 1 of something far worse. I'm honestly disappointed in my wife. My daughter isn't spoiled, she works for half of the things she owns. She pays for her own school books and her own phone bills. She also is a straight A student and is one of the biggest people pleasers you will probably ever meet. I had a talk with my son, my daughter, and my wife. I spoke with my daughter first and told her I was divorcing my wife. She was shocked and kept persisting that I give her another chance and that she isn't in any way upset. I told her that I understand, but I was upset, and I assured her that this wasn't her fault and that I just wanted the best for her. She got very defensive and said,
You need to be worried about your own happiness. I'm leaving for the military or college in a few years and you're going to be an old man with no one there for you.
I laughed and said that I could be 130 and still make the best out of being alone. After that we laughed, we cried, she apologized, and we comforted each other. When I spoke to my son he looked so taken aback, then started crying. I comforted him, telling him that it wasn't his fault and continuously apologizing to him. After he calmed down, I explained the entire situation to him. He looked embarrassed and tired, and he started apologizing for his mother's actions. After a while, he cleared his throat and said,
So does this mean you won't be my dad anymore?
I was heartbroken by that sentence and started shedding a few tears. I told him that he would always be a son and that I would still financially support him even if he cut contact with me. He cried and assured me that he wanted me as a dad and expressed that he knew that his mother wouldn't let me see him. About 2 hours later, it was finally time to break the news to my wife. I had both kids present and I had my phone in my pocket so I could record the entire conversation. I started the conversation off by asking what she had against my daughter. She was dead silent before I finally spoke again, saying, I'm divorcing you, so you should start looking for a lawyer. I asked her to explain why she was neglecting and disrespecting my child. She was crying but not making any sound. My daughter spoke up and suggested we have this conversation later. I argued against the idea with my daughter until my wife spoke up and said she did it because my daughter is the spitting image of her mother, my ex. Obviously me and my kids and I were confused about what her mom had to do with anything. I asked her to explain further and she started crying. I could barely understand, but apparently I was cheating on her with my ex and she said,
You flirt with her on the phone while laying right next to me. The relationship you have with your ex isn't normal.
After saying that our relationship was normal, she started berating my ex. My daughter is a naturally laid-back and calm person, but she does not condone any type of disrespect towards her mother. She left my wife with a verbal assault so foul Mike Tyson wouldn't recover from it before stomping off to her room. I went upstairs to calm down my daughter, and my son stayed downstairs to console his mother. I'll be taking my wife to court for visitation rights with my son.